What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my preview for the 2024 WWE Draft Night 2. Now, this is taking place on Monday night on Raw, all 3 hours. They're going to have 6 rounds, 24 total picks, and so whatever we don't see, much like SmackDown this past Friday, I'm sure they're going to make announcements on their social media accounts following the show where whatever free agents remain will be said to be on Raw or SmackDown or even potentially NXT as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. I really want to dive into it. And so without further ado, let's get started. We have quite a big pool as far as talent's concerned, much more than SmackDown this past Friday, being that this is a 3-hour show opposed to a 2-hour show on SmackDown, so they got more spots to fill and so on. So I'm going to try to run through this graphic as quick as humanly possible. We have Braun Strowman, DIY, Apollo Crews, Bronson Reed, Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, CM Punk, the Creed Brothers, and Ivy Nile, Damage Control, all 4 members, Drew McIntyre, Karrion Kross, and the Final Testament, including AOP, Scarlett, Paul Ellering, and so on. Giovanni Vinci, potentially be moved on his own, being kicked out of Imperium last week by former tag team partner Ludwig Kaiser. Now we have Ludwig Kaiser, we have Gunther. Will they be drafted as Imperium, the two of them? Will they be separated? We'll soon see. Same can be said about the Judgment Day. You know, Damian Priest is not going anywhere, being that he is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion on Raw. But will any of the members from Judgment Day be drafted to SmackDown or NXT, being Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, Jade McDonough? We have Caden Carter and Katana Chance, Kevin Owens, Santos Escobar, and Legado del Fantasma. You know, there's a lot of tag teams, a lot of factions in this pool that could easily be split. And so I think we will see that to a degree. We have Naomi, Natalya. We have New Catch Republic, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, The New Day, Odyssey Jones, Pretty Deadly, Shinsuke Nakamura, Tegan Nox. We have Bobby Lashley, The Street Profits, and B-Fab, of course, another faction yet again. Tiffany Stratton, Rey Mysterio, and the LWO, or what remains of it. It seems like every other week, somebody's turning on Rey Mysterio. If it's not his son, it's Santos Escobar, it's Carlito this past Friday on SmackDown, Dave Bautista back in the day. So Rey seems to be the problem, simply put, common denominator. As much as I love Rey Mysterio, of course, he has Dragon Lee on his side. He has Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, and Selena Vega. And of course, last but not least, Jade Cargill is available in this draft for Monday Night Raw's pool. So I'm going to get to my picks. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Going to just do them all at once, as far as not going back and forth between Raw and SmackDown, as I sometimes do. I'm just going to give you all of my picks for Monday Night Raw first, 1 through 12. And that'll be that. So first round, I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre and Gunther in the first round. Second round, I'm going to go with the entirety of this stable, sticking together Bobby Lashley with the Street Profits and B-Fab, followed by CM Punk. Now, jumping to round 3 here, Damage Control. I do think all 4 members will remain together and make the move from Friday Night SmackDown to Monday Night Raw. I do see Naomi also making her way from SmackDown to Raw. That would mean all 5 of these women would be coming from the blue brand to the red brand now. The round 4, this is where business picks up a little bit. I mean, these are all great picks, of course. Former NXT champion, Ilya Dragunov. I can see him making his way from NXT, being called up, being that he just dropped that NXT championship last week on night 1 of Spring Breakin' when he lost to Trick Williams. And I could see him coming to Raw. Now, whether it's to feud with the Gunther, whether it's to join Imperium as the 3rd member, being that Giovanni Vinci was just basically kicked out last week. That would be very interesting. I'd definitely be for that. So Ilya Dragunov starting off round 4, followed by the Judgment Day. I do think all of them will remain on Raw for the time being, although I think the stable's going to meet their demise sooner than later. Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, Jade McDonough, Damian Priest. Not sure how it's going to happen, but I do think all 4 of them remain on Raw together, especially with Rhea Ripley out right now with her injury. So I think they're going to hang on to that just a little bit longer. Round 5. I see a returning Braun Strowman. I think it's time to get him back on television. I'm pretty sure he's cleared and ready to go, so that would be nice. Now, the second pick of round 5, I see yet again another potential NXT call-up, and the ironic thing about this is just less than a month ago at NXT Stand and Deliver in the main event, semi-main event, it was the title match. It would have been the main event had it not been for Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes, but anyway, prior to that, we had Ilya Dragunov, the NXT champion at the time, going up against Tony D, and I see Tony D'Angelo being drafted to Monday Night Raw as well. Now, possibly he could bring up his whole family. You know, they're called the family. in its entirety, although the only other one who might be ready to make his way to Monday Night Raw on the main roster is Channing Stacks Lorenzo, who's pretty much been by his side the last 3 years since they made their way to NXT 2.0 initially. Was it Adriana Rizzo and Luca Crucifino, who both relatively are new to the family in NXT to a point, could use some more time in NXT. I think that would be most beneficial for both of them. So I'd hate to see the family be split, but at the same time I would understand if Tony D only came up by himself and Stacks maybe becomes the new leader down there, or if Stacks was the only one to join him. So either way, that would make sense. And another faction I would like to see make their way to the main roster, this is just a side note, this is not an official pick, is Metaphor to the main roster. Noam Dar, Oro Mensah, Jakara Jackson, Lash Legend. They've been great. They've really grown on me a lot in the last year on NXT, so they're very entertaining and can wrestle too. Now the final round, round 6 for Monday Night Raw, I'm going to go with Natalya, and I'm going to also go with the tag team making their way from SmackDown to Monday Night Raw in the New Catch Republic. Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. I think that'd be a great pickup for Monday Night Raw. I know it would be. They're an amazing tag team, and so that's pretty much it. Now, I'm going to make a few Raw honorable mentions that remain in the pool. And I could see Chelsea Green, Piper Niven. I could see them remaining there, whether they stay a tag team or not. Chelsea Green, she's fantastic in numerous ways. Piper Niven, if they actually let her be her full self, and that goes for both of them, really. They can really cause some damage. Apollo Crews, I think they'll keep there. Odyssey Jones, and also Pretty Deadly, may make their way from SmackDown to Raw. And Gigi Dolan, I could see her being called up from NXT as well. Now let's head over to SmackDown. I'm going to start with round 1. And I think this would be very interesting. The way I do these selections for the draft, they're in no particular order. Just because I'm naming a couple in round 1, round 2, round 3, that's not necessarily, as I said in the first preview for night 1, it's not necessarily how I see them being drafted. I just see them ending up on that brand in general. But I could see Jade Cargill, and I think it'd be pretty cool if Jade Cargill was the first pick for SmackDown, being that Bianca was the first pick for SmackDown on night 1, being that they are a tag team now, and being that they will dethrone the Kabuki Warriors likely this Saturday at Backlash. So I see Jade Cargill and Kevin Owens both remaining on SmackDown. Round 2, I also see Legado del Fantasma remaining there as well. All 4 members, Elektra Lopez, Santos Escobar, and who else is it? Humberto and Angel. That's a fantastic faction. Also see the New Day making their way over from Monday Night Raw to SmackDown. Round 3, see an NXT call-up from the women's division. I see former NXT Women's Champion Lyra Valkyria making her way to SmackDown. Be a fantastic pickup. If you're not familiar with her, you will be soon. She's great. And I could also see Shinsuke Nakamura making his way over from Monday Night Raw to Friday Night SmackDown. Round 4, another guy from Raw I could see going to SmackDown, making some noise, maybe even in the United States title picture as well. Bronson Reed. And I also see the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile making their way over from Raw to SmackDown, remaining as a stable, as they were in NXT, made their way to Raw last year, and now coming to SmackDown together. Why not? Third time's a charm. So coming over as Diamond Mine, and we'll see what happens. Now, if that were to happen and the Creed brothers did take Ivy Nile along with them, that, of course, would be the split of the tag team we've seen recently, Maxine Dupree and Ivy Nile. Now, I'm not saying anybody's going to lose sleep over Ivy and Maxine splitting. I'm just saying that it would be very beneficial for Maxine to have Ivy around. But look, if Ivy is going to pave her own path on SmackDown, I'm certainly 1,000% for that. Now, round 5, Tiffany Stratton, I do see her remaining on SmackDown, continuing a feud with Bayley over the summer. I do see Bayley retaining in their triple threat match with Naomi, Bayley, and Tiffany Stratton this Saturday at Backlash. But I do see Tiffany feuding with Bayley and eventually getting her hands on that women's championship for sure, sometime in 2024. A likely candidate to win the women's Money in the Bank match, and we'll definitely find her, hands on singles gold. So I think the, Monday Night Raw side of things, as I mentioned in the last episode, with Becky being champ now, Rhea's out for the time being, Liv's in the hunt. You have those 3, Liv when Rhea returns, Becky. So they have enough going after that Women's World Championship. But as far as this WWE Women's Championship on Friday Night SmackDown, I think it's really just between Bayley and Tiffany at this moment in time, and that's pretty much it. Also see another duo making their way over from Monday Night Raw to Friday Night SmackDown. Much like the New Day, I see DIY's Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa making their way to SmackDown. Hopefully they get some tag gold eventually. And if not, this is where we'll see the eventual split, right? Probably a feud, much like we saw in NXT 5 or 6 years ago, was fantastic. So that's what I see happening there. Now, the sixth and final round, I see the LWO staying there. See them staying put, much like Legado. I think we've been seeing these two go back and forth for months now, and I'm getting tired of it, that's for sure. But it's been great. It's been enjoyable. But I do think it's time that these two teams, these two factions stay here, but I think it's time for them to wrap up this feud. So once this whole thing happens with Carlito, and I don't know if he's necessarily going to join Legado or just do his own thing, but either or, it's time for them to go their separate ways, even if they are on the same brand. Last but certainly not least, my final pick of round 6 to SmackDown in the overall draft is Katana Chance and Kaden Carter making their way over from Monday Night Raw. They did a fantastic job on Raw, former WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. They had a brief run over there a few months back, and so that's pretty much that. Now, some honorable mentions, much like I did for Raw on SmackDown, that remain in the pool. I could see going over to SmackDown from Monday Night Raw, Giovanni Vinci, right? I think either way he split from Imperium, whether it's him going to SmackDown, going back to NXT, which they tried to rebrand him a couple years ago before he was brought back to Imperium on Raw to join Ludwig Kaiser and Gunther. Either way, he'll be doing singles on SmackDown or NXT. I see Carlito staying on SmackDown. Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, another women's tag team I could see being moved from Raw to SmackDown. Tegan Nox making her way from Raw to SmackDown. And, of course, be remiss to not mention who I mentioned in night 1 of the draft. I would love to see her make her way up from NXT to Raw or SmackDown. But right here I have Blair Davenport, potential SmackDown pick. That pretty much sums up my night 2 of the WWE Draft, my Raw picks, my SmackDown picks. Now, I believe the Final Testament continue to find themselves on NXT for a bit, getting some gold when all is said and done. That's where I think they're headed. The past couple of weeks, they've been on SmackDown, and I could legitimately see them being on NXT full time. This Tuesday night, night 2 of NXT Spring Break-In, we have Axiom and Nathan Frazier, who have only been champions for a couple of weeks now, going up against AOP, the Authors of Pain, Akam, Razar. I'm sure Karrion Kross, Scarlett, Paul Ellering will all be ringside in some way or be involved in this title match. Not that AOP will need them, but I could see them doing some kind of sneaky, underhanded tactic. Being that they are heels, they're looking to take over. Hell, maybe Karrion Kross gets his hands on that NXT championship for a third time. And you got to remember, AOP, they've been away for about 5 years or so. I never thought I'd see them return in WWE, that's for sure. But, they've also won the 2016 Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. They were the second team to ever do so. The first team, 2015, was Finn Balor and Samoa Joe. And they're also former Raw Tag Team Champions. I believe they won it at some point in 2018. So look, they're more than capable. I think this is a good idea to keep them in NXT as champions for a good amount of time. And this is certainly the way to go. I would have Karrion Kross dethrone Trick Williams eventually. Doesn't have to be next week, but I think that would be a good idea at some point to really establish, again, their dominance. So when they come back to SmackDown or Monday Night Raw, that people actually take them serious, because as I've mentioned many times before, in my opinion, AOP was always taken pretty seriously in NXT, and even on the main roster to a point. Karrion Kross, however, he was always taken serious on NXT, not so much on the main roster. Certainly not his first run, and his second run, I'll be honest with you, I thought would have been a lot stronger, a lot better. I mean, we're going on, once we hit September or so, September, October, we're going on 2 years of Karrion Kross being back. His first initial feud was against Drew McIntyre, and it's kind of been all right. It hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been great. So, I'm pulling for him. I really am. His wife, Scarlett, does a fantastic job. She's a fantastic valet who can also wrestle. So, you got Paul Ellering there. I mean, Christ, he managed the Road Warriors, one of the most popular, best tag teams of all time in the Legion of Doom. So, he's in good company. He's in good hands. And realistically, if this doesn't work out for Karrion Kross, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. But Final Testament, hopefully they garner some success. And again, after this run, throughout the better part of 2024, hopefully in the new year or so, make their way to Raw or SmackDown and hopefully can show some dominance and be taken seriously over there as well. So that just about does it for me here, folks. Thank you as always for tuning into the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen. This is my preview for night 2 of the 2024 WWE Draft. Hope you enjoyed it. Gave you all my Raw picks, all my SmackDown, gave you my call-ups and my potentials, even after the fact, being brought to Raw or SmackDown. And that pretty much sums it up. So enjoy night 2 of the draft. Hopefully it's better than night 1 was. Hopefully it's a lot more exciting. And that does it. As always, I appreciate you guys. And I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.